So now I shall hand over to Peter. So we'll have to demonstrate and present this new generation of the Mountbatten. So thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rebecca. My job is to really show you the new device and compare it to the older devices and other devices as well. And I'm just going to do that partly with a PowerPoint presentation and then partly by actually putting the camera onto the device and showing you some of the features. So let me just share my screen. Rebecca, can you see that slide?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Oh,
thanks,
great.
Peter.
Okay. So on this first slide, we have a picture of the classic Perkins in the bottom left corner, and a Mountbatten Whisperer in the middle, and to the right, the new Mountbatten Tutor. So what is the Mountbatten Tutor? Just going to advance that slide. Well, it's the latest version of the Mountbatten Braille series that Quantum designed and manufactured from 1990, and now, of course, being manufactured by Harpo Adaptive Technology in Poland. So, like its predecessors, it's an electronic Braille writer with speech output. Its principal use is in education and early Braille learning, though, of course, it can be used in other scenarios as well. It can be used as a Braille embosser. But essentially, it extends the well-established usages of the Mountbatten LS and the Mountbatten Whisperer by adding more connectivity, and above all by making it more intuitive for non-specialists to use. So by including regular classroom teachers and teacher aides and parents, people who are not Braille teachers can still assist in the early learning stages, both at home and at school. So complementing the work done by Braille specialists. So to understand what the Mountbatten Tutor is, we need to compare it to previous models and also to the Perkins Brailler. Now, the Perkins Brailler, of course, was an absolutely revolutionary device back in the 1950s, and certainly even more liberating than, and I have a picture on the slide here of an Underwood typewriter, which in itself was a revolutionary device, but the impact of the Perkins as a Braille writing tool just can't be underestimated. And it's still the primary device used worldwide for Braille writing. And I think Tim, I'd be correct in saying that it's still the main device used in Australia for learning Braille. So it might seem a bit anachronistic that blind people might continue to use a mechanical device, but of course we shouldn't ever forget that everybody uses some well-trusted old-fashioned devices, pen and paper, for example. That's been around forever, and sighted people use that still. And in fact, many blind people refer to the Perkins as pen and paper. It works extremely well for people who already know Braille, and it's tough, only needs oiling every couple of years. And the question is, I guess, why would we need anything more? And of course, Tim and Tricia have already addressed some of those points. I'm just going to focus on the shortcomings for early Braille learners of the Perkins, not because I want to put down the Perkins, but simply because it will contrast with the advantages of the electronic Brailler. So first of all, of course, the Perkins is Braille only output. And that means that if it is pen and paper for blind people, it's essentially using invisible ink. It's invisible to everybody that can't read Braille, which of course is most people. The second point is that being mechanical, it takes a lot of strength to press the keys down, and that's just a function of being a mechanical device. And the other feature, of course, is that early learners need a professional Braille teacher to sit with them whilst they are learning. So just looking at the first point, and here's a picture now of the Mountbatten Tutor with a few other peripheral devices around it. The the Mountbatten Tutor, in a sense, makes Braille visible and audible. The Braille that the child is typing can be back translated to print, either on the built-in display, and on the picture there on the right-hand side, there is a LCD display that's built into the new Mountbatten Tutor. And for people who are familiar with the older versions, there was a separate display called the Mimic that did much the same thing. But the Braille can also be saved electronically as a digital file on a USB stick, and then obviously reproduced in print on a computer. We can in fact print to a regular printer, and we can transmit to regular devices like iPads and computers and have them displayed on those devices as well. So this way, people who are not Braille specialists can participate in the process. On the second point about the strength to press the keys on a Perkins, on the Mountbatten, and for the whole range, but also on the Tutor, there's a very soft action for the keys. So that means that you don't need a lot of strength to form the Braille. And in the photograph I have on the slide, you may notice that the keyboard, which is called a wireless keyboard, is detached from the Mountbatten Tutor. It's actually wireless. It can be positioned anywhere. And that opens up possibilities for people who have postural problems. Perhaps they're in a wheelchair, or they may have other issues which require them to adjust the position of the keyboard. Of course, it should always be close to the Mountbatten Tutor, so you can reach over and feel the Braille, of course. And the Mountbatten Tutor also has a one-handed mode as well. So for children that can only use one hand, it is possible to use it in one-handed mode as well. On the third point about learning and requiring a professional Braille teacher at the point of learning, with the Mountbatten Tutor, of course, because a sighted parent or a teacher aide can read the display, they could perhaps have it connected to their iPad. Of course, the tutor itself is speaking out loud as the child is brailing. This can make it possible for them to contribute to that learning process. So this way, people at home, families can contribute with spelling and quizzes and games and all those sorts of things. These sort of fun, engaging things that will be parallel to the more formal Braille instruction provided by VTs and so on. I just need to be clear, though, of course, that this is not ever going to be a replacement for that formal process. We absolutely see that the tutor fits in as part of a whole ecosystem of teachers, Braille teachers, parents, and so on. Obviously, formal instruction is absolutely necessary, but the Mountbatten Tutor can contribute at home and also in the classroom where perhaps the Braille instructor is not there and that we only have teacher aides and regular classroom teachers. So I'm just going to, I've brought up a slide which is just showing the Mountbatten Tutor in comparison to the previous model, which was the Mountbatten Whisperer. And for those of you that can see the slide, the Mountbatten Whisperer has the traditional keyboard layout built into the case, whereas the Mountbatten Tutor has, as I mentioned before, the detachable keyboard. So the first obvious thing is that the Mountbatten Tutor looks a lot more sleek, shiny, modern, looks perhaps more like a regular printer compared to the Mountbatten Whisperer. I have also mentioned that at the top of the slide that the commands are backward compatible. And what I mean by that is that all of the formatting commands that were present in the Mountbatten Whisperer have been ported straight into the Tutor. And that means that teachers that are already familiar with some of those formatting commands and some of the processes they're all still available exactly as they were, but they have actually been grouped and aggregated in the menu system that is brand new to the Mountbatten Tutor. The internals of the Mountbatten Tutor are all reworked. So the emphasis was on reliability and reducing the need for servicing. Now, for example, the battery is a lithium-ion battery instead of the old lead-acid batteries that were in the Mountbatten. This was always one of the issues with the older Mountbattens, was that on school holidays, people would forget to keep them on charge. And when they came back from school, they would have a dead Mountbatten and the battery would have to be replaced. So the parts, the batteries and so on, they're all much more reliable and require less maintenance in the Mountbatten Tutor. The other thing that's absolutely brand new in the Mountbatten Tutor is that it has Windows underlying as the operating system. Now, though it's not being used in the way that you or I would understand Windows for running programs and so on, it's being used to provide the connection, the connectivity. So we've got USB ports, we've got Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. So all of those things are possible because Windows and all the drivers and so on are there within the system. I've already mentioned the detachable keyboard. So that's a point of difference to the Whisperer and the previous models. And I touched on the menu system. Now, the menu system, as I said, it aggregates all the commands and so on that were in the Whisperer into logical groups. So there's a section for forward translation, a section for back translation, for page layout, and so on. Right margin bell commands, all those sorts of things are now in a vertical list, which is displayed on the display. And to move through that list, we use this new idea of an arrow key system, which was on a circular dial, and I'll be demonstrating that when I turn the camera there, which allows you to just use an up and down motion and a confirm button to move through the menus. The main idea there, of course, is that someone who's can't remember all the commands, they could simply hunt down through the menus for something that looked approximately to do with that, and then explore that sub-menu and find the command that they need. And that's all, of course, voiced. It's all spoken out loud. The visual display is built in, though we can also connect to other displays as well. And I'm talking about iPads and computers and so on. Of course, for anybody that's not familiar with Braille, all Braille devices do make noise, and so does the Mountbatten Tutor. I would say that in comparison to the previous model, the Mountbatten Whisperer, it is about the same level of Braille embossing volume, maybe a little less. So that is an advantage in a classroom situation. And finally, the Mountbatten Tutor has got some new games as learning tools. These are mostly vocabulary games and quizzes, and also some improvements to the calendar function and so on. There's also the music keyboard, and I'll be mentioning some of those things a bit later on. Well, I might as well mention them now. The diary and calendar have been vastly improved. The diary was already present in the Whisper in previous models, and it was a way where a child could just put down, day-to-day events and so on. But because the Mountbatten Tutor can connect via Wi-Fi to Google Calendar, it now means that somebody that doesn't understand Braille or anything like that, they can have a shared Google Calendar, and something that mum puts in on the Google Calendar, an event like don't forget your swimming togs or Sarah's birthday or whatever, they will get embedded straight into the Braille version within the Mountbatten Tutor, which can be read and read out loud as the child moves through it using the arrow keys. It can also be embossed, of course. So this way, the child can participate and take some management of those of their time management, the concept of the future, planning, and so on. And I think that's a very exciting ancillary benefit. So it's not so much about Braille there; it's more about being taking some ownership and some management and autonomy. The other thing that has been improved is the tactile graphics. So we've always had the ability with the Mountbattens to type Braille that looks like some shapes and angles and so on. And so you can make pictures of teddy bears and flowers and so on. But by connecting the Mountbatten Tutor to a computer, we can use programs like Picture Braille and QuickTac. And QuickTac is free. It's a free drawing program to easily create simple tactile diagrams and then transmit them via USB to the Mountbatten Tutor, which will emboss them. And those tactiles can incorporate Braille as well, so they could be labeled and annotated. And the other fun thing is the music keyboard. So you can actually use the 8 keys of the wireless keyboard to form an octave, and you can change the pitch, the instrument, the duration of the notes, and so on. And it is also possible to type in the beginnings of Braille music. So you can type Braille music code in, record it as a file, emboss it, and so on. And we will also, in the future, be able to play that back using the instrumentation that we had selected earlier on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera to the device and go through just some of the basic operations of the Mountbatten. I'm going to stop sharing now so that we can switch to the camera that Michael Palmer's on.
Thanks, Peter.
And I'm going to come round now and
Hopefully people can mostly see the video of the Mountbatten there. So let me know if your view's not right.
Can you see that okay, Rebecca?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so the device is about the same weight as the previous Mountbatten. In fact, Michael, if you can turn the camera to the left, we have the Mountbatten Whisperer over there, which is a bit wider.
Sorry, Peter. Some people are saying they can't see. I pinned it. I'll spotlight the video. Maybe that will help.
Looks like we're okay.
Hopefully that should be good.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
And so that's the mount. I've got it standing upright, but it is wider and a little bit heavier than the Mountbatten Tutor. And just coming back now to the tutor itself, you can see that the casing is completely different. And the first thing I'm going to just talk about is the paper handling. Now, this is exactly the same as it was on the previous model. We do have an additional reading tray, which just fits at the back here into the slot. And that just gives a little bit of a reading platform, just a nice firm surface there. The paper feeds in the usual way. There's a paper lever which we pull up as in the previous model, and you can either feed it from the back or from the top. Once it has loaded, it takes a measurement. And I'll just mention, of course, that we're talking here about just regular paper. This is just 80 GSM photocopy paper, and you can even use recycled paper. So if you've got any paper knocking around, you can use that as well, and that will save on cost, of course. The wireless keyboard, I'm just going to give a little bit of a description of it for you. So one of the things that we've done with the keyboard here in comparison to the previous model is the keys are laid out more like in a computer. So we have an escape key in the top left, and underneath that a tab key. And on the other side, on the right, we have the backspace key in the top right, and below it, the enter key. And of course, that is the same on a computer keyboard. We then have 8 keys. Now, 2 of them we're not really using here in Australia. That's .7 and .8. Of course, the Mountbatten is sold everywhere, so that's more relevant to 8.BRAIL countries. And then, of course, the 6 keys, 1 through 6 in the middle. A space bar underneath. And that's a point of difference with the previous model, where that had an enter, sorry, a new line and a space bar and an enter key. Here we just have the space bar and the enter key in the usual position. And we have below this innovation, which we call the click pad. And this has got an up and a down arrow. So if I press the up arrow, it moves the paper. Or if I'm in the visual display, it'll move up 1 line. If I press the right arrow, if I had braille there, it would move through the braille. And in the middle of this arrow key system, we have got a confirm key, or what would have been called the command key. So that also can function like an enter key when you're confirming a command and so on. And finally, we have a dial within the arrow keys, which is just for fast movement through the menus and so on. So I think what I'll do is I'll just, I should mention that as you bring it up towards the case, it actually starts the charging process of the detachable keyboard, and that does that through the case. It's just a magnetic clip and a wireless charging through there. So let me just show you how we can just browse some stuff here. So let's say I do, so it says .6, I'm using the capital sign there, and then I'll do so that said capital D space do, and this is the same as on the previous model in the sense that it's actually giving you the, in speech, the contraction as well. Space, like. Space, cats. So I've just typed and the child could read there. They've also got the reinforcements of the speech. Now let's say I wanted to correct that. I could just use the left arrow key on the dial pad, and I could move back through the. And Michael, if you can just show on the display here, we've also now showing here 2 lines. We're showing the expanded braille, and above it we're showing the ASCII equivalent that includes the contractions and so on. So if I go back. And let's say I want to correct the C to something else. As in the previous model, I would press the backspace key in combination with the key that I want it to produce. So I'm going to do that now. And so now we like bats. So that's much the same as on the previous model, but of course we now have on the display here the correction dynamically changing to show that there. Okay, so that's the simple operation there. What I'm going to do now is just to show you how we can connect a regular keyboard and do much the same thing here. So this can just be a regular USB keyboard. I just plug it into one of the USB ports. So here we just, the child could just type in normal on a normal QWERTY keyboard. And this way, I think this can be extremely useful where the child is also learning QWERTY as well. They get the same audible benefits and the braille feedback as well. So they could be learning in parallel QWERTY as well as the 6-dot Braille input there. Now, one of the nice things about the Mountbatten, of course, is that it also has some games in it. So I'm just going to show you one of those games. And while I'm going to get to that point, you'll see how I can use the menu here. So the first option in the menu is File, and I can go down the menu with the down arrow.
Display, menu, language, menu, page settings, menu, format, menu, forward translation settings, menu.
And of course, in the forward translation settings, we would have things like the grade that's being used, grade 2, grade 1, and so on. Whether forward translation is happening at all. In other words, when we're using the QWERTY keyboard, whether it's going to translate or not.
Back translation settings.
And back translation, the reverse process.
Common translation settings. Menu. Speech. Menu.
And with the speech, we can change whether it speaks the words, the lines, or the letters.
Keyboard. Menu.
In keyboard, we can actually switch to one-handed mode.
Menu. Calendar.
This is where the calendar is.
Games.
And finally, this is where the games is. So I'm going to go into games and I'm going to use the confirm key to do that.
Games. Keymaster.
And the one I'm going to do is the letter relay race.
Letter relay race. How to play.
It gives you a description if you want to. I'm just going to go diving in and start the game.
Start game. Select number of players.
Now, it could be 3 players, or in this case, I'm going to select 1 player because I want to play against the Mountbatten Tutor.
Enter name of player number 1 and confirm with a touch name.
Oh, okay.
Check that the paper is in the Mountbatten.
Well, it is. So let me just put in me.
P-E-T-E-R.
Now, I've done that in grade 1.
Hi, Peter.
So it's actually embossed the first question or the first word, and on the display it's also written that word out in print. And the game is to look at the last letter of the word, in this case an E on the word pie, and then I have to think of a word that starts with E. So I'll just do that. And so I checked that and it ends in T. And so I'll do, what do I do? I'll just do T.
What about tutor?
Oh, what a good idea. I won. Okay.
Well done.
So look, you can set the level of difficulty and so on, and the amount of rounds, but I think that just gives an example of just how engaging that is and how that could be something that will really get a child engaged with the process and working with their parents and siblings and so on. So, and new games are being added. We are in touch with Harpo to add new games in. If anybody has any games or ideas for games, please do let us know, because we would certainly consider that. I think it's a very important area. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you how we can connect to the iPad as we used to with the previous model. The programs, the app that you can download for iPad, and it's also available for Android as well, is the MB Mimic app. And so for those of you that are not familiar with this, look, it's a free app that you can download from the App Store, and you basically connect the Mountbatten. It looks for any Mountbattens in the vicinity. Here it's found the MBT. and hopefully that will Bluetooth connect. It says it's connected. I'll just check that UEB is on. And I have some options here. I can go to the whiteboard or to chat. Now chat is just like a back and forth messaging. I'm just going to go to whiteboard. And this is where I think a lot of the power of the Mountbatten Tutor comes in, is that parents and regular classroom teachers can use just conventional iPads and so on to start this process of vocab lists, quizzes and so on. So let's say the teacher says something like, you know, what's the capital of, let's say the capital of Hungary. So then we have here on Braille the question, and then the child can type back on the Braille display. So they could do, what have we got? And so then we have the answer there like that. And this can be just a back and forth, or it could be something that had been something copied from the clipboard, pasted into the whiteboard, it would be embossed, and then the child could add and back and forth. All of this can be saved as files in the iPad. We can also share from some apps directly into the whiteboard as well. The other thing I've mentioned is that we can use sticky Braille labels. So this can be either in the thicker sort or the thinner sort, like here. And that, of course, then opens up the labeling of the child's objects, but also their readers and so on. So mum could just cut out the text for this, or the teacher could do that, the regular teacher could do that. They could label their CDs and so on. And then just to show an example of some of the tactile that we produce on the Mountbatten Tutor. So this was drawn with QuickTac, which is the drawing program for Windows. And so I've just actually run a little bit of ink over it just so you can see the dots a bit clearer. And so you can make all sorts of shapes and so on very easily with the drawing programs. So I think that gives you an idea of how easy the tutor is to use and how quickly you can get some great engagement. So I think in closing my presentation, it's a bit hard to sum up neatly what the Mountbatten Tutor is, because it does so many things and it will mean different things to different families. Every child is different. We've come up, the closest we can have as a tagline is currently families learning Braille together. Though that ignores many of the other benefits around music and tactiles and time management and so on, I think it does emphasize that the learning is not just a school thing, and that Braille can be for everybody, everybody in the family, and it can be fun. So hopefully you've seen that some of those fun, engaging things today.